Hello. We're going to get started in 1 second. Today we have our guest, Sheila Murphy, and I will bring her onto the stage now. Hello,
Huh.
Sheila. So I'm going to
Hello,
take a
Elgin.
different approach. Normally, I will read your entire bio, but your bio is extensive. So I am going to switch over and ask you, tell us a little bit about yourself, your practice, and the work that you do.
Okay, I work primarily with women lawyers who are trying to get to the next level, whether it's at a law firm or corporation. I have spent 23 years of my life in corporate America climbing the ladder, and I'm trying to share some of those nuggets of wisdom that I gained during that time with others so that they can shorten their trip to the top of the ladder.
I love it. I love it. And then also tell us when you started writing about the Whisper Network and all of this work, where did that inspiration come from?
Um, it comes from my real life, which is the fact that throughout my career, there have been people who have lifted me up and they whispered my name in other people's ears. They talked about me, whether they were inside or outside my company, and they made a tremendous difference in my career. And when I started to talk to women about that, I was hearing a lot of comments like, well, that's you. You have that network. You've cultivated those people. Those type of people aren't in my circles. And I realized that this was a barrier to women to get to that next level because they do know those women. They are those women. And they just don't understand how to leverage it and how to make sure that they're getting to that next level and getting over the fears of talking to people in their whisper network or who could be in their whisper network. I go back in my career and I was at a couple of conferences where I was very junior in my career and I sat with a couple of general counsel and we had a nice conversation. So I followed up and we went to lunch and we got to know each other. And they really were fundamentally important throughout my career. And yet, when I talk to more junior women about speaking to someone who's more senior, I get, well, I'm not important enough. I'm not this. And they're making assumptions about who they are and what the other people view as important.
Ah, assumptions. So, actually, one of the things I want to step back and talk about, you were the senior vice president and associate general counsel at MetLife. And at that time, you were doing litigation, regulatory, and risk mitigation, but you were also part of the US Women's Business Network. And so, when you think about like just the role that you've played in the business networking and being able to talk about yourself, how do you start to build up the Whisper Network? Where do people start?
You start by looking at who's in your network to now and how warm those relationships are. Do you have people who know you that you're not cultivating? Because the whisper network only works if people feel that they have a relationship with you. It doesn't have to be a best friend relationship, but just a relationship. And the second thing is they have to know what you stand for, how you operate, how you work, because a lot of times in the whisper network, people are putting their credibility on the lines for you. So they need to have a sense of who you are before they will start to give you those opportunities. So, in fact, committee, like being in a business network at an employer or at an entrepreneurial network, if you're an entrepreneur, or little places where people see you in action and listen to how you talk, they then think, okay, that's someone who I might refer my friends to if they were looking for someone who was maybe a coach in a certain area, or this is someone who I might, put up for promotion or an opportunity to lead a cross-functional team because I've seen that person in action and I know who they are. And I feel like I have the credibility if I go in and I talk them up.
Yes, and one of the things you just mentioned about assumptions. You talked about assumptions and the things that we make up in our mind. Can you tell us more about like coaching and the role that coaching can play in helping someone get comfortable with the Whisper Network?
It is sort of coaches can challenge your assumptions and how you're thinking about things. And by challenging those assumptions, they make you reframe or relook at the stories that you're telling in your head. For example, I've had two women in different companies be reached out, have very senior people reach out to them to want to get to know them better. And they like were putting it off because the story in their head was, well, they were just being polite. We met and X, Y, and Z, and they really didn't mean it. I'm like, no one has that much time that they are reaching out to you for no reason. So these are even people who have had the reach out who are fighting it, let alone people who've met people at conferences and had a lovely time. And so I think I also, by challenging them and telling my story of, yes, sometimes I met senior people and sometimes they didn't respond. Really didn't change my life dramatically. Wasn't awkward if I ran into them again. But for those people who did, that did change my life dramatically. And so to start focusing on the positives and the impact it can have and stop overplaying the negatives.
Absolutely. Another thing we had spoken about in the past, when you think about the things that we expect of our friends and our peers as we're building our business, and we think that our whisper network is one thing, but sometimes it's people that we don't expect that are actually advocating for us. Talk about your experiences and how entrepreneurs and women leaders and any leader can start to think about who's really in my network.
And this is one of the reasons why actually men in some ways have more powerful networks than women. Men's networks tend to be broader and the relationships are less deep. They're a little more shallow, but they're bigger. So when they hear of an opportunity, they know 10 people that they can reach out to rather than maybe a woman's 3 to 5. And so it's those outer rings that where a lot of the magic happens. And I have found myself that sometimes my closest friends, the ones who I thought would be the ones recommending me, may not be, but people who've seen me in other scenarios, on committees or how I operate, or happen to listen to me talk once, will recommend me to other folks. And so don't make assumptions about who your supporters are, because I will tell you, you will now and then be surprised by the people who are really in your corner rooting for you. And so treat everyone that way. And I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. And don't have any expectations on other folks, because I think sometimes people do, and it can lead to hard feelings.
Yeah, and I think that the expectations, those are also things that we place, just like assumptions. Um,
Absolutely.
so I also want to explore Whisper Network has a give and take component. Talk about the both sides of that relationship, the give and the take.
It People like to be there for people who they have a relationship with, but it's not all. Relationship implies two sides. It doesn't imply that this is all take, take, take. And again, it doesn't have to be big gifts, but it has to be there with a listening ear. If that person calls you up and wants to talk through a problem, you need to be there for them. You need to be sympathetic. When they have successes, you have to celebrate them. You need to be there for those people, because that is sort of what creates the bond that also reminds them about you and opportunities come. But it has to be authentic. People can tell when you're kissing up to someone. Kissing up is not relationship building. Kissing up is kissing up. And to be honest, that was always unappealing to me in terms of the people I would recommend, because I wanted people who were their authentic selves, comfortable in their own leadership. And those are the types of people that today I recommend to friends all the time, thinking that they can get to that next level, and what a great fit this could be. It's not always about you. And every whisper conversation where someone does something for you should always end with, "Thank you. How can I help you?" And people are like, well, a lot of times they're senior, they're general counsel. What can I do? I go, it doesn't matter. You have to put yourself out there as being willing to help people. And by the way, I have had clients who are very senior get like general counsel roles for people who used to work for them. And so you don't know where these referrals are going to come from, and you don't know if someone can do something for you. And so that you
Absolutely.
have to be open. It's having an open heart in some ways and putting yourself out there.
That is a very difficult thing for many people that are very technical or that have mastered their careers, especially women and just individuals like, I'm going to do all of the work. I'm going to be the best that I can. How do I cultivate this soft skill when that's not the skill that got me into this role to begin with?
but it's the skills that will get you to the next level. There's a certain point in corporate America, whether you're IT, legal, finance, where the technical skills become much less important than the leadership skills. And so those soft skills that we now and then have downplayed because our parents were so proud that we got, this, we made honor roll or whatever, got magna cum laude on IT or invented some patent, that gets you to a certain point. To get to the next point takes leadership, and those are those soft skills. And those networks, whisper networks, also help you. That's how jobs are placed when you get to senior letters in corporate America. I know in legal it's 85%. So, and I'm sure it's similar in other areas where that's where that network helps you. And not just for external jobs, but internal. You don't get promoted unless people are advocating for you. And again, when you are becoming more senior, it's not about, again, your finance skills, because you're also going to be leading a team. You're going to be managing a budget. You're going to be looking to improve processes and procedures. So the whole outlook is different. They want those technical skills to a certain extent, but the leadership and those soft skills are so critical.
Absolutely. And it's true for entrepreneurs who have a skill or a talent they've launched a business on, but then there are these other things that they need. They need referrals, they need network.
You got to be able to sell. Selling's all about relationships, touting who you are, explaining to people your brand, getting out there and getting comfortable with marketing to a certain extent. If you're, depending on the size of you, if you're a solo entrepreneur or one of the smaller ones, there's a lot, and you're building a company. So you need to have an idea. If you're building a bigger company, what's your vision? What's the culture you're trying to create? All of those things are not the technical skills. It's not the product. You want people to come to work and want to work for you, especially in this job market, which is really, really tight. And you want to show people and that they're appreciated, so they stay.
Absolutely. So talk to us more about the introvert versus the extrovert and how do they start building this whisper network?
I am an introvert. I am a natural introvert. And I've done a lot of work to become a little bit more of an extrovert when it comes to networking and to building. So the first thing you do, as I said, is look at your network today. Who is in your network okay, and they don't have to be close in your network. To look at every one of your LinkedIn connections. Figure out who in there are people that could be whisperers for you, and figure out, how is the relationship? Should I be trying to build it? Is there a way to start to heat it up? Because the easiest relationships are to cultivate are the ones you already have. So start with you already have the door open, and that's an easier place for an introvert to begin with. The extrovert and introverts are really good at building really strong connections because they care and they're thoughtful about it. Extroverts, by the way, while they may have a lot of connections, they don't necessarily always do the cultivation because they're up to the next shiny new object. They get very excited. And so they have to spend a little bit more time thinking about the relationship building. So start with your own network, look at it, figure out who are the people you had maybe during the pandemic not been in as much touch with. Is there a way you can heat it up? Is there a way, if you're an introvert, you can bring 3 or 4 people together? So it's one event. There'll be other people to take some of the heat of the conversation. And if you think that they have things that they have in common, everyone is grateful because you've brought them together. And so it takes a little bit of the pressure off of you. And then if you're missing people, start to think about who in your network might be able to do some introductions for you to those types of people, or what are the conferences you're going to go to try to meet those people, and then be very intentional and thoughtful. Again, if it's exhausting to you, some introverts find networking exhausting. So then be thoughtful about how you're going to do it. And maybe it's not a conference, maybe it's joining a committee of entrepreneurs or a master class or something where you could start to meet people who might be ideal clients or people that could help you.
I love that. I love that. So it's very intentional, very, very much focused on even what you have in your space right now. Who do you know
Yeah.
already? I love that.
And when I've done that with clients, they're shocked. When I'm like, what about this? What about this? And I've had conversations with people where we've gone through the events that they've had and the people, and they just haven't done the follow up. And when you start to be intentional about it and have someone challenge you, all of a sudden you're opening up layers. And I will tell you, when I was looking at becoming an entrepreneur, I did a lot of exploring. I talked to a lot of people. And I had people introduce me to people who introduced me to people who introduced me to people who I'm still really good friends with. And so the value of the Whisper Network is not just that first connection, but the connections that they can make for you that go several layers deep. And then it's up to you to try to continue them if there's a meaningful connection that could be valuable to both of you. And not to just think of it, oh, this is an informational interview, done, had it, over. Instead, think of everything as something that could lead to wonderful things in the future.
Yeah, let's take a step back. Talk about when you first started on your journey as an entrepreneur and being able to craft that story and share it with other people. I think a challenge that people have with the Whisper Network or just even creating their network is being comfortable asking or sharing what they're doing.
So I was exploring the fact that what was going to be my next chapter when I retired from corporate America. And I knew I wanted to do something with talent. I wasn't sure how I wanted to do it. And so I looked at my network and I found those people who I could trust to start to have that conversation. And this is also important. I was very specific as to what I was looking for. I was thinking about doing something in talent with women lawyers. I was thinking about 3 or 4 different things. Was there anyone in their network who might be able to help me think this through or has an experience? And people would give me names, and those people would give me additional names. And it was just really, and sometimes I've met people who really not quite connected to what I thought I was looking for, but actually some of them are still in my network. And I've referred other types of business to them because we met and they were really interesting people. And so it's just sort of, but you have to be as specific as possible when you're going to leverage your network, when they're not coming to you, but you're going to them, because people can only help you to the extent that you allow them to. So if you say to them, I'm looking for a new job, okay, I'll keep my eyes out, but they don't know what you're looking for. If you say, I am looking for an IT position with a startup company where I can lead a team, and I want, all of a sudden, their eyes are much more attuned. And then when they hear something, they think of you right away. So you have to help people help you by being as specific as possible with the ask, and whether they can help you again, you go back to that thank you and what can I do for you?
Absolutely. And I think this is a good segue. So tell us more about Focus Forward Consulting and the work that you do and why that matters.
Um, my focus and Focus Forward Consulting, like I said, is women lawyers. And while you think of women lawyers as these very high-powered, successful women, in the legal profession, women still are not reaching the highest levels compared to men. There's still a gap. And then even when they do reach those levels, there's a huge compensation gap. And my mission is to try to reduce that. Now, that's my focus of my market. It's not everyone I work. I do work with a couple of entrepreneurs. I do work with some men. But my purpose and my mission is to try to help women get elevated in the legal profession. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that they don't understand the business of law. They understand law, but they don't understand the business of getting ahead in law. And I think that's the doors I am trying to open for people, because people did that for me in the past, and I was able to use that to further my career. So that is the hope. So,
Okay, wait, I need you to tell us, what is the business of getting ahead in love? Because I feel like that's a universal theme in getting ahead in general. And it sounds like you're hyper focused in the law space, but it could be a lesson that we all need.
oh, absolutely, which is why I do coach people who aren't lawyers successfully. Being successful in the law has 2 components. And one was that if you're in a company, and this is what we just talked about, it's the fact that your technical skills only get you so far. So how do you position yourself to get to those next levels? And because people who go to law school, God bless them, I'm one of them, our parents are really proud that we're lawyers. So we really, and we're trained as lawyers the first few years. And that's the be all and end all. And we're not trained to do the non-lawyer stuff as well. So the focus is teaching them the leadership skills and what corporate America is looking for in its lawyers. On the other hand, with women who are in law firms, the name of the game is bringing in your own book of business. Very similar to entrepreneurs. It's building a business. And again, they're very hyper focused on the legal aspect and servicing clients, but not necessarily building the business, which again takes those soft skills that we haven't been taught and trying to show people, how do you network? How do you brand yourself? How do you convert a contact into a client? And how do you keep them once you get them? And so it is, focusing them on, how to navigate from being, a service partner where you're servicing other people's business to building your own. Because when you build your own business and you own it, you're in power.
Yeah.
And that's the key.
Oh, I love that. So talk more about that, being in power and really taking control of building this book of work, building your business, building your networks.
I mean, to me, I think power is a great thing if you use it the right way. So I'm not using it. I want more women in positions of power, because when you're in power positions, you can make change, but you have to get there.
Yep.
And to get there, if achievement's the aim, you got to play the game. So you have to understand the game and the rules for getting forward. And being in a powerful position, it gives you a lot more freedom and flexibility in your life. So it's not just about the career and the power. It's about making positive change when you're there, because you're a different voice. It's about having the life that you want, whether you're at a company or at a law firm, because when you understand how to position yourself and get into power positions, you have a lot more mobility and flexibility in where and how you work. You also have higher comp to design the life you want, and you have more opportunities. And so power gives you a better life, and it can make a difference in other people, because the women, we're seeing this in law firms. We're seeing a big change in the number of women who are managing partners. And with that, we're seeing changes in some of the policies. I'm not saying the change speed is at where I would like it, but when you're seeing a different voice there who has a different view of how things can be, you start to see change. But again, you need to be in the power position for that to happen.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we have the Whisper Network, we have our power position. Are there any other keys that you feel are going to help entrepreneurs, women leaders, women that are looking to accelerate their career in the legal field?
I think, and this probably goes more to entrepreneurs and women in law firms, understanding your ideal clients, who is your target at a deep, deep level, what is important to them, and then what you'd bring to help them. I mean, a lot of times people don't like selling themselves because it feels icky. It's all about them. And selling yourself is really not what you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be meeting client needs or targets needs. And you only do that by really understanding who they are on a really deep level, and then understanding your strengths and how you can help them. I always talk about, when I'm talking to clients about this, way back when we went to malls and people would spray you with perfume. Every time you went to a store, somebody would come by with that. Did anyone ever buy that perfume? No, because no one asked you what your scents were. No one asked you if you wanted it. They just sprayed you. And so when you're trying to sell something, that you don't want to be doing you don't want to be the perfume person. You want to be that person who is listening to the other person's needs and helping them drive their business forward. And so to me, understanding your clients, understanding the needs and the objectives is really one of the key things to getting ahead, because even at companies, it changes. There's a new change in management. There's new objectives every year. What's important to the company changes. And you want to be on top of those things. You want to be that person who understands what's important and demonstrate how your value statement, your value proposition is going to further their lives, their work, their careers.
That talks about listening skills, and that's another soft skill that many people don't have. We just kind of go off and on.
I have said it's the number one skill you need. Listen.
Absolutely. And as I'm listening to you speak right now, I think that a lot of entrepreneurs have their pitch, they have their spiel, but they're not necessarily thinking about what is the client need. They're not necessarily thinking, how do I make the connection with this person so that we can deepen our relationship? And Go ahead.
And I'm anti the elevator pitch. I think people need bullet points that they want to put into a conversation, but you want it to be a conversation because that's where the relationship building and the listening happens.
Wait, I need you to speak more about that for those that may not understand the. See, I know
Okay.
that you're an attorney or you've come from the background with very succinct. You want to be to the detail, to the point, but tell us more. Bullet points. What? How does that enter?
So I have all my clients for each of their ideal audiences write out 4 or 5 bullet points, 4 or 5 things that they think that person should know. Sometimes it's a story, sometimes it's this. And tell them, you're not shaking someone's hand and then just spewing it all out. That's not how you develop a relationships. That's not how you're memorable. That's how people want to hide from you at cocktail parties. You want to be thoughtful and listening and having a conversation. So you know the main points you want to intersperse when it makes sense, but you want it to be like natural. You want the person to be intrigued by something you say and ask you a question. Because when they ask you a question, they're listening and they're hearing what you say. So I don't like the idea of an elevator speech. I like the idea of elevator points, of points you want to get forward in a conversation if you can. And that will have more impact than just spewing it all out. I went to this conference once and there was a woman handing out business cards and she had a 2-minute speech. And by the end of the conference, literally no one would sit with her. No one would talk to her. People were hiding from her. And I heard her say to her boss on the phone, yeah, I gave out 500 business cards. Well, that's good. Not one of those persons want to have another conversation with you. That's not how you know, get further in this world.
Yeah, yeah. And so we're taught as business professionals, oh, you need your elevator pitch. You need to be able to get everything out in 15 seconds. So how do we untrain? Well, actually, when we're thinking about the Whisper Network and the bullet points, it's so connected because you want to give people something tangible that they can walk away with. And I'm not going to remember your entire elevator pitch.
Yeah. I'm a big believer in stories. If you have one sort of story you can tell, that people remember stories, not pitches. And so if you have a signature story that you can tell people, that will make them say, "Oh, I remember her." And, then it's like, "Okay." And they may not remember your name, but they'll remember the story, and that happens time and time again. So, um, one client of mine, was married a cowboy, literally married a cowboy she met on vacation. And she started working that into her story. People remember that. Not many New York City businesswomen marry cowboys. Um, and so, and she said it was shocking to her how
Mm.
many people remembered that. And another woman I worked with ran a bar at one point, and she worked that into her story. And she was like, I would never have mentioned that, that she was almost embarrassed that she did that
Wow.
at one point in her career. And now she was telling people, and she goes, all of a sudden, people remember me and they think it's interesting. And I've become this other person because of this story of how I did this. And so sometimes the things that we're most ashamed of are actually the things that will make you relatable and memorable.
Oh, I love that. Okay. So we are coming up on the end point. Do you want to leave us with any last parting thoughts or gems? Because ultimately, you gave us a lot of good details and a lot of good information to work from. So, Sheila, yes.
Getting back to the Whisper Network, it really is critical. So the first thing I would do is sort of assess who's in there today, then look at what you need to build or cultivate. What are the steps you need to either build it up more or cultivate some of the relationships? And then 3, think about how you're leveraging it today or why you're not leveraging it today and focus on that. So those are sort of the 3 steps on the Whisper Network I would urge everyone to do today if they have a moment.
Yes, and they can also follow you on your on your LinkedIn page because you post a number of articles. So just share your LinkedIn page. We'll put it in the link too.
Yeah. Uh, Sheila Murphy, /focus forward.
Yes, and make sure you subscribe to her newsletter because it is excellent and you'll learn more even about the Whisper Network.
Right. Whether you're a lawyer or not, a lot of the topics I speak about really are universal in nature.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Sheila, for joining us today. And thank you, everyone, for checking out Any Given Monday.
Thank you for having me.